Hi, Bill.
It's Cinthia and Judy today. Bill had a better offer. So this is the program of the 3 Ps. That's politics, politicians, and perspectives. And it's been an interesting morning already.
You two people.
Would you like to introduce?
No, not
no.
yet.
Okay.
Both Cynthia and Cathy think living in the country is so wonderful. Well, let me say this about that. We just had an episode here. You may notice we're a little late this morning. The cat who comes in through the heat run, or the vent at any rate, brought a bird.
A live bird. My mother doesn't do birds.
I do not do birds. I am not afraid of man nor beast, but I'm scared to death of birds.
So,
it's a phobia.
In the middle of the program, if you notice that she has departed, that would be a bird issue and nothing to do with the guest or the topic at hand.
And now, Bill, would you like to share your kudo?
My kudos is last night there was an honor flight, and if
this isn't going well.
No, it's going splendidly. You just got to kind of roll with it. But
Brilliant.
Last night there was an honor flight at the Springfield airport. And if you have never gone to the airport to welcome them home from their marathon trip,
yes,
I highly recommend it. These are World War II, Korean, Vietnam vets that gave for us, and to go and welcome them back is so moving.
It really is. There are lots of people there, and they're all waving little flags. And many of the vets that have been on their, as you say, marathon trip, because they leave before breakfast, and they get home like late at night, but they go out to see the memorials in Washington, D.C. And many of them are in wheelchairs, and each of them has a guide with them that's usually their son or grandson or some family relative, and it really is a nice thing to do. It really is, and kudos to the man who birthed this idea and carries forth with it. It doesn't cost the vet a dime. Their sponsor, their guide, has to pay a fee for their trip back and forth, but it doesn't cost the vet a dime, and it's such a good idea.
If you have an opportunity, please go.
It's really neat. Now, getting on to our guest of the morning, who was greeted in the typical country fashion here with the cat, with the bird, Cathy.
Good morning.
I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time because I think that your story is so interesting, how a girl named Hieronymus from Atlanta, Illinois, ended up being Maciariello from Italy is just fascinating to me. And we've talked with you before about your work at the library here. Have you been in library science always, or is this just a love that you have?
No, it's just a love I have. I mean, I think I have roots in literature. I have a master's in English, and I taught secondary school English for a number of years. Excuse me, worked in publishing as an editor. I've always been a reader, so it feels like I'm finding my way back to my roots, when I'm at the library. And then the years I spent in arts organizations doing programming of an arts and cultural nature is also really relevant to what libraries are trying to do today. So it's a natural progression, I think.
Now that's your life in New York.
Yes.
With the arts.
Yes, although I did spend after I left publishing, I began working, when I was living in Springfield, Illinois. My first job in the arts was with the Springfield Symphony, which is now the Illinois Symphony. Mm-hmm. And I worked there for a number of years, and then spent time working with symphony orchestras in Long Island and Richmond before moving to New York and working for a composer organization. So I have worked in the arts across the country in a number of ways.
Was it as a publicist then?
No, I was the dreaded manager of arts organizations who got to deal with all the union contracts and the financial woes and the donors and
that was
cash
fun.
flow management and personnel and planning and all of those things. So,
Oh, since that's why she's so organized.
Yeah.
am I organized?
Oh, my word, yes. Oh, I think you are.
Actually, I have friends who, when I go to visit them, say, "We really love to have you here, but please, under no circumstances, reorganize our spice cabinet."
Did you go to school with my brother? He keeps alphabetizing all of Sherry's spices.
I used to do that, and then people say, "I can't find anything." And so now I have a new system. You should tell your brother. It's really good. I have a number of Lazy Susans, and I don't alphabetize, but I categorize. So I have all of my ethnic spices on one Lazy Susan, all my baking things on another one, all my leafy, herby kind of things on another one, all my vinegars on another. So I just have to spin them around, and they sit in my cabinets. And, I find that's actually better than alphabetizing because, the jars aren't the same size. So when you alphabetize, it's a nightmare.
It is a nightmare.
I'm
should I
joking,
say.
Judy.
Do you think that,
I do have Lazy Susans. I do that, but I'm really not quite so fanatic.
well, do you have a little, just a titch of OCD, do you think?
I don't think so, actually.
Sounds
Although
like
I don't
it to
know.
me.
I'm one of those people that if you look at my desk, you would never think I'm organized, but I know where every single thing is.
Yeah, but that's the thing about a person's desk, I think. I would be loath to go to anybody's desk and tidy it up or even dust it and move things because it might look like a pile to me. But to them, they know which order the pile is in.
Yeah.
So, no, it's a no-no. Don't mess with anybody's
It's
desk.
true.
No, sir. Because it's not really a mess. It's an organized mess for people with OCD. Right?
Yeah, I don't know a lot about that.
I know.
Oh, somebody's called. So, Cathy, you're going to have to use that. And since you're going to have to find ours, and we have to share.
Good morning.
Okay. Hi there.
This program is for the birds this morning.
You're darn right.
Hi, Bill.
Got
Bill,
out of town, you let things go to heck.
how dare you leave me in my hour of need with the bird in here?
Well, thank you for substituting this morning. And Cathy,
Good morning, Bill.
hey, Cathy, how about thinking
How about what?
It plays in the Pittsburgh Symphony. I guess that's what he does still. Get him back here and let's put on a kind of a concert at the college or something like that. Put that on your to-do list.
What kind of concert you're looking for, Bill?
Oh, well, I just thought might be a good exposure here for him and also perhaps no fundraiser. So anyway, just think about that, Cathy.
I will be happy to do that.
I didn't
All right,
get the
well,
name, but then I'm deaf as a post, so.
You pull this program together and see if you can save it between now and 9 o'clock.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Since I'm counting on you because you're younger to understand.
Nope.
No, I think it
He cut
But he was
cut
breaking
out.
up pretty
Yeah.
bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing with cell phones. There is still some merit to having a landline. There really is.
Anybody who's interested in calling in for questions for Cathy or changing the subject or whatever you want to do, it's kind of freewheeling here. We're waiting for the bird to show up. Give us a call at 648-5510, and we'll be happy to take your call and answer.
help you organize your laundry
Yes.
closet, or whatever. I don't know. I was trying to figure out where I fit in with what's the title of this? Politics.
Personalities, politics.
Politicians and perspectives.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'd be a personality and a perspective, and if you don't mind, I don't mean to sound bossy, but I'd avoid politics.
I was hoping you were going to say that because I always get myself in trouble when we go down
I
that
do
road.
too.
No, I don't mean as a subject. I mean as a career.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that goes without saying.
Yeah, I think I'd stay out of that. Well, getting right back to this, that's what you did, was organize everything so that people could have a concert.
That's part of what I did. When I worked for 3 different symphony orchestras, and of course I had staff people who worked in production, but that was my job, to work with the artistic leader of the organization to plan the year's activities and concerts, hire the artists, make sure that we had musicians on contract, that the hall was ready and rented, and that we sold tickets and made money selling tickets, and all of the things that go with producing a live art event.
At one point, you did bring some noted people to Lincoln.
Well, we have this series at the library called Behind the Scenes, and the guests on that series are generally artists I've known during the time that I've worked in New York. Many of them were theater artists, but we also had some musicians, and they came and talk about their careers. Last year we had a really wonderful cellist named Misha Isteman, who is now a cellist in the Pittsburgh Symphony, but I knew him because he was in the cello section of the Richmond Symphony when I was working there. And we've been friends for a long, long time. And he was quite a hit. He was probably our most popular visitor last year, because he came to the United States with a cello and a black suit and not a word of English when he defected, actually at age 19 or 20, and now is about as American as you or I.
Yeah. Now, what's your schedule at the library this year? What are you bringing for your special program?
Well, we're working on that right now. We have our kickoff event for Behind the Scenes is going to be a young man named Brian Davis, who's a singer-songwriter. We actually had him scheduled last year, but the weather, as you remember, was really terrible last year.
We had
several snow outs last year, including Brian. So he's coming back in November to kick off our season. He's a really talented young man. He used to play in a group that appeared at the library a couple of years ago. They've now graduated school and moved on, but he's continued in his musical career, and so he'll be coming on November 14th. We have a really wonderful writer from he grew up in Southern Illinois, named Gary Moore, who wrote a book, Playing with the Enemy, about his father's experience in Major League Baseball. He was a really highly touted Major League Baseball prospect who was drafted into World War II and injured and never able to return to play baseball. And Gary is coming in April. We're having thematic months all year at the library, but April will be back to baseball month. So we're having all of our activities will in one way or another relate to baseball, and Gary will come and do that. And we're working on filling out that roster now, so we should know within a couple of weeks what the whole series will be like.
Great. We'll be eager to hear about it. Now then, how did you go from New York clear over to Italy?
In an airplane.
That's a good idea. You can't drive.
Swam.
Yeah.
Right. Those jellyfish will get you every time. Well, that's a long story, but I've always loved Italy, and I think I don't know, let's go back. When I was divorced in 1986, the first thing I did was take myself on a trip to Italy with a girlfriend who was of Italian descent, and I just felt like I was at home the first moment that I stepped off the airplane. Now, in those days, it was the era of the Red Brigade and all kinds of political and mafioso uprisings in Italy, and so we got off the plane, and I've never had an experience like this, and walked down the steps onto the tarmac and into the airport with soldiers with machine guns lining up in a gauntlet to protect people getting off the plane. It wasn't exactly the Italy that I imagined. But that was sort of beside the point. I mean, I did fall in love with the country and the language and the people and the food, and obviously the landscape is just phenomenal. And so I started studying the language, and I kept going back every summer. And when it came time to think about vacation, I had a long list of places I wanted to see and visit, but I always ended up back in Italy. And then I began spending summers in Rome, at the American Academy in Rome, and it just one thing kind of led to another. And you know what they sort of say about self-fulfilling prophecies. Then I met my husband, my second husband, who was working in New York, and he was an American citizen who was born in the U.S. but of Italian descent, and most of his relatives lived there. And so we got married, and I moved to his hometown in Italy.
And was his home in rural Italy?
It is, I think the town probably had about 4,000 people. Nobody could ever tell me. I mean, this is the thing about Italian towns. Nobody ever knows how far anything is or how big anything is. And the other thing is everything that you ask where it is always really close. So they lie. I mean, that's like the first thing you need to do. The first piece of advice I always give anybody when they go, and I said, just remember, when you ask directions, they will be wrong. Because everything is, say, sempre vicino. Very close, always close, always close. And then they'll say, you go here and turn right and turn left, and it's really, really close. And pretty soon you've wound your way for 30 minutes around some unknown neighborhood, and only to find out that it was actually really the other direction. I mean, this is so typical.
Is it that way because they typically don't leave their little burb, little town,
I wish I had ever figured that out. I mean, because it's actually not true. I mean, there are big cities in Italy, and people are, like, I spent a lot of time in Rome. It's one of the most cosmopolitan cities you could ever be in. I just think that's the way they live their lives, in very circuitous, meandering, wandering ways, where you rest in the afternoon and you kind of do what you want to do on the spur of the moment. And if you set out to do one thing and something else better comes along, you go ahead and do that. I mean, there's something really beautiful about that, is that for them, always straight and always close is around the corner. You know what I mean? And so if it's 6 corners, that's the same thing to them.
So that was probably a very different lifestyle in Italy than what you had in New York, which is very fast-paced.
All the sidewalks on a grid, and you get on the closest train and you're always figuring out where the nearest bathroom is. That's like a rule in New York, know where the public bathrooms are everywhere, and you walk straight and you think about what's the closest route to get me from here or there, and it is completely opposite, but it's very endearing. I don't know how I got off on that little sidelight, but
what's their stress level if they're so laissez-faire?
I think it's probably not that different than here.
Really?
In the cities, the stress level is higher. In the country, not so much. Nobody could ever tell me how big the town was, but everybody's related. That's the other thing, is I always was being introduced as, oh, this is my cousin, oh, this is my cousin, oh, this is my aunt, oh, this. And I finally said to my husband one day, is everybody in this town related? And he just laughed, because those are like terms of endearment that they use. Like if I could introduce you, Judy, for example, to my friend, and I said, oh, this is my Aunt Judy. Well, aunt is a term of respect often for an, I almost said an older person, but I didn't really.
Well, if the shoe fits.
No, I get that. It's kind of like saying Uncle Bill. He's absolutely no relation.
Right. But you called him that.
Yeah. For, 45 years.
Oh, it's longer than that. We've been here for 49 now.
Oh, wow. Oh, a big birthday coming up.
Well, kinda.
There are bigger ones to come.
There are. My mother had one.
Yeah, she did, and she retired when she had it.
Yeah. Well, I think that the stress level, and this is something too that I think people don't realize. The stress level in Italy has gotten much greater, and it differs also. The southern part of Italy, which is where I was living, is pretty poor, and unemployment is probably 50%. It's almost two different countries. The northern sort of more commercial industrial part of the country, which is more northern European, more like France and Germany, and then the southern part of Italy, which is what they call the Mediterraneo, which is more like Greece and more rural and more impoverished. And I think the stress level has gone up as economic circumstances have gotten much more stringent. I mean, Italy's, my first trip was in 1986, and when I came back to the States in 2010, and I've only been back once since then, it was a very different experience in terms of, the way of life and the ease and comfort with which people were getting through their daily routines.
How does the government fit into that picture of the astronomical unemployment?
I thought we weren't talking about politics
I
today.
know, but it always rears its ugly head.
It does, doesn't it?
Here we've got all these programs. Is
Well,
it the same in Italy?
Here's the thing about it, and I confess I'm certainly no expert about this, so I can talk from my experience of how I experience things. The government is highly dysfunctional. Anybody in Italy can run for office if you get a petition and get the right number of signatures. And I forgot how many political parties there are, but at last count it was somewhere in the 40s, I think. And so what happens is that no quote party ever kind of wins an election. So what happens is coalitions are formed among all of these little tiny parties, and then they usually sort of converge on one of the sort of major leaders, and as a result there are factions within factions, and a lot of stuff just doesn't get done. And
That sounds familiar.
it does, actually. Well, and you see huge amounts of money poured into public works projects, which are supposed to be about employment. But, I mean, I can't tell you how many shopping centers I've seen built, and they function for maybe 2 or 3 years, and then they just lie defunct because there's just no economic... I mean, people don't have money to spend. I mean, in the town where I lived, I still bought my fruits and vegetables from a truck, from the guy who came twice a week. I bought my fish from the back of a truck. I bought a lot of household goods from the back of a truck that travels around. It's not like there are big stores, although the shopping center movement was sort of coming there, but didn't really function the same way as it does here. So consequently, the national government doesn't function very well, and as a result, the local government it works the same way. And every Sunday when you go out and all the women go to the market and they're preparing food, and for Sunday dinner, you can go down to the center of town and you'll see all the men standing around on the street corner. And what are they talking about? Politics, and trying to form their own sort of coalitions. Now, all of that said about the structure of politics, some things actually work really well. I broke my ankle when I was in Italy and had to have surgery and rehabilitation, and the medical care I received was excellent, and I didn't pay a dime.
Really?
Because I paid a copay for X-rays of I think $20, and I paid a copay for physical therapy of I think $20 or 20 euros it would have been. But essentially, I went into the hospital and was taken care of, and didn't pay anything. So there is a healthcare system, that takes care of people. And that's expensive. So that's part of the reason the government
Is it
broke.
socialized medicine?
Well, I don't know what that means anymore. I honestly don't know what that means. I could go to my doctor. I could go anywhere I wanted. What they don't have is every single facility doesn't have every single piece of equipment. There are specialty places, and so if I wanted to have, if I were going to have heart surgery, I would go to a certain place. If I were going to have cancer surgery, I'd go to probably another hospital. Or like when I broke my ankle, I was at a place where they specialized in broken bones. So there's just not a lot of duplication. So it's a little more efficient.
That sounds like it. We're going to have to take a little break here because the time is marching on, thanks to the bird. So we're going to have a couple commercials. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Viewpoint, and the call-in number is 648-5510, and we have our lovely guest, Cathy
Mach.
M.
Cathy, that's what she
from Italy New York via Atlanta,
Yeah,
Illinois.
that's quite a trip.
Well, it's, I started in Atlanta and I ended in Atlanta.
Yeah,
so
you
it was a
did.
journey, let's say, not a trip.
Now, how does it feel to be back in Atlanta? How do you keep them down on the farm after they've seen Perry?
Well, this is, I probably shouldn't confess this, but I remember at one point in my life saying to my friends in New York, because I loved living in New York. I mean, it's an amazing, amazing experience. But I remember saying to friends there, oh my gosh, my worst nightmare is to wake up one day and be old and sick and jobless and have to go back to my hometown. And
Oh, God.
that's like my worst nightmare. And they said, oh, don't worry, we'll never let that happen to you. And, here I am, old, hopefully not sick and not jobless, but here I am back home, and it's so wonderful. And I just, you should never say never, and, never live your life with preconceptions about it, because, I know it's a cliche, but, life's what you make it, and I've been happy every single place I've ever lived, and this is no exception. And I've made contacts with people I went to high school with, and, made new friends and new associations, and found a place where I feel like I can, put what I've learned to work for the good of the community. And, it's a blessing.
Well, and that's what I think's so neat. I look at what you bring to Atlanta. How would we have a cellist whose name I'm not even going to try to pronounce in Atlanta, Illinois? What a wonderful thing for this community and all of Logan County that can come and listen to. There's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah. It's a big world, and that's part of why I love being at the library. And we were just talking about it last night, at our planning committee meeting, is that, part of our mission is to bring the world here and to remind people that as rich as life is here, it's a big world, and there's always something to learn and new ways to grow and explore. And that's what we hope to do at the library, starting with little kids and going up through our older kids.
What you've done is carry out the old saw about you can't ever find happiness. You have to make happiness. You made yourself happy in New York, real happy. You made yourself happy in Italy, and you made yourself happy in Atlanta.
Yeah, I think it's just a question of being open. And, that's one of the things that that you learn with time, and being open to hear what your calling is and where your talents can be put to use. And the big lesson I think I would say I learned is that I don't determine that. God determines that, and you just have to be open to hear what that call is, because it may not be something that you think about or anticipate on your own.
Yes, that's one of the things I've admired so about you, is that you really do live that.
Oh, well, thank you.
You do. I like that. Let's go back to Italy now.
Now that we've been really serious.
Yeah.
It's up for
I don't know, the
stories.
cat's back in here. Stay tuned.
You talk about having to have your ankle fixed, and I remember when Chuck Verderber broke his Achilles tendon when he was playing basketball in Spain. And, of course, they took him to the hospital. That's a terrible thing to have happen, because Cass did that. Remember how bad that was? And they took him to the hospital in his uniform. And when he got there, they brought him a pan of water, soapy water, and a cloth while he was still in his uniform, and said, you wash that up a little bit and we'll go to surgery. So apparently your experience differed from that.
Slightly. Although I will...
Oh, dear. It's back.
The bird is here. And the cat has found it.
Oh, gosh.
Stay tuned. Are you okay?
Not so much.
Okay, it's hanging on the wall just below the second shelf.
Oh, now it's up on the wall over there. The poor thing is terrorized. Oh, hi there.
Oh, well, we have to keep talking. Don't.
You just shut the door.
Judy, it
You're
just
going to
flew
spill your
out.
coffee.
I suppose.
Okay.
Welcome to Animal Farm.
for this.
For those of you who not
This is a real
George
shirky
Orwell's
dude here.
Animal Farm,
Or seen Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds. Judy's going to run right out and rent that movie tonight when she goes home.
Be still my heart.
Oh, gosh, and now you have a
What?
cornworm on your jacket.
A what?
A cornworm.
I
Judy's
swear.
can't wait to run back to Lincoln and get out of the country.
The metropolitan area.
You know, it's always good to just kind of go with the flow here. Things are working out real well. The bird is gone. The cat is locked in the room with us. And the cornworm's not on your jacket anymore. Let's go back.
Life is good.
Let's go back to Italy.
Well, so, see, where was I? Oh, I was breaking my ankle. Well, okay, so I go to the hospital, and I won't say that, like, the system is perfect because it's not always comfortable. So they put me in the back of an ambulance, and the roads aren't always very good, you know, to take me to this hospital that requires you to kind of go through the mountains. And so I'm in the back going bum, bum, bum. Meanwhile, the bone is sticking out of my leg. And, you know, it was really
Oofta.
painful. And I get to the hospital, and they wheel me into this treatment room, which I looked around and thought, oh my gosh, this is like some kind of medieval torture chamber. You know, things are old-fashioned. And because they had to set my leg, I mean, they had to put my ankle back into its proper
and that's such
place.
a darn place to work on because there are so many things going on.
So it wasn't too pleasant, but anyway, it all happened, and people were so nice there, and you know, they had to wait a few days for the swelling to go down before they could actually do surgery. But the funniest part of it was that, okay, I had a spinal for the surgery, and I was more afraid of that than I was of anything else because I'd never had it. But the anesthesiologist was like so good, you know, she was just excellent, and she put only one leg to sleep. So I'm lying there. First thing they asked me was, did I want to watch? And I said, oh, no, thank you. You know, put the curtain up, please. I don't need to watch. And so I'm talking to the anesthesiologist, and I said, how can you do that? You know, just do that injection and put only the leg to sleep that's being operated on. And she said, oh, because I'm a magician, and we laughed and everything. And then she said, in all seriousness, she said, well, no, really, you know, they tell us we have to save money, and I didn't have enough money to buy anesthesia to put both legs to sleep. And
she was just
lying
funning you,
Oh, she
wasn't
was
she?
funning me.
Oh, good.
She was laughing. But for a minute, I thought, oh my gosh.
Surgery on a budget.
Yeah, exactly. But it was fine, and I recovered, and I had a wonderful physical therapist, and now I'm really careful when I go downstairs. I always use handrails.
Oh, yeah.
Because I went flying off a porch in the dark in the rain, and, you know, missed one or two steps, and that's how I landed and broke my ankle. So it was not pretty, but it was a growing experience because I had to lie in bed and basically for a month and be taken care of, which is not easy.
No, I'm sure it wasn't, but they've obviously done things correctly because you don't limp at all.
No.
You're very lucky.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you are. And
Well, you know, I think it's interesting that you say hospital specialized. This is an orthopedic, this is a cardiac, this is a pulmonary. And in theory, I think that's a neat idea. But, you know, like Mom and I were talking this morning with medical marijuana coming, and you get your script, and in order to get your card in Illinois, you have to go to Chicago. Because nothing happens south of I-80. How do you get from Chicago up there? Say I need an orthopedist, and we don't have one here in Atlanta, but I can travel to Peoria. Or I need the heart, and that's in Springfield.
But you think about it, that's what people do anyway. I mean, I think when people around here are sick, they go to Bloomington, or they go to Springfield, or they go to Peoria. I mean, you may have your local doctor, which you do in Italy as well. You have and my primary care doctor lived 2 blocks from my house. So there's always that. It's not. I don't think they're much different.
well, there must be specialists in these various fields that the hospitals represent. Yeah.
Let's go to food.
I was just sitting here thinking, here we're talking about Italy, and we're talking about all this boring stuff instead of the food.
That's the best
When you
part.
talk about the food, I'm assuming you talk about all the spices and the vinegars and everything you have at home. I'm assuming that happened more in Italy than it did in New York or Atlanta. And Talk about the food and the going out and the cooking. Don't let the cat out there, Mother. The bird's out there.
Well, it's hard.
Predation at the station.
That's what we got here.
Sorry. Oh, flight of ideas.
That was a good one.
Yeah, flight of ideas. Bright, shiny objects. Here I am.
Well, what would you like to know about food?
What is one of your favorite dishes?
Okay. I just went to Italy in January. That was my last trip. And
you didn't invite us?
You can come anytime you want to
Okay.
go. I'll accompany you anytime you want to go. And I had a list. And these are the things I have to eat while I'm here. First was pizza. I almost never eat pizza here because it's just not comparable. The second was mozzarella. That big white cheese that everybody here buys in the craft food section. And, where I
Not
live,
quite the same.
it was, that's where mozzarella came from. It's made with buffalo milk, and you buy it warm on the day that it's made, and you slice into it, and it's like slicing into a beefsteak.
I want to know who's milking the buffalo.
I know, I never saw that. I think it's machines, probably. But,
Well, I would assume it'd be like cattle, but interesting I hadn't.
yeah.
You okay?
Yeah.
I
So
didn't
let's
even
see
know
what
they
else-
had buffalo over there.
Yeah, they have mozzarella all over Italy. Some of it's made with cow's milk. Like if you buy mozzarella here, it's made with cow's milk. And interestingly over there, here people say mozzarella cheese. You would never say that in Italy because mozzarella is mozzarella. And cheese is usually refers to Parmigiano, the Parmesan cheese that's
Yes.
grated. So when you say formaggio, which is cheese, that's what you mean. Or you mean a little cheese that you might slice and eat on a cracker, usually made with sheep's or goat's milk. But mozzarella is only mozzarella. And you only eat it we would only eat it the day it was made, after which we would squeeze out the milk and freeze it and use it in lasagna or something. And so those were on my list. Clams, because over there they have these really special Mediterranean clams that are about as big as the tip of my little finger, and they are sweet and succulent. And so my mother-in-law, whenever I go, the first thing that appears on the table is always linguine with clams. And then her special stuffed artichokes. What else do I? Oh, and then in Napoli they make a special pastry called a sfogliatella, which is made it's like ricotta cheese in the center, but it's a kind of a croissant pastry, a layered pastry around the outside, which is just to die for. So I had on my list. I ate everything I needed to eat while I was there.
And did you observe your list very well?
Yes, every single thing. Oh, and of course, ice cream was on the list too. That was the last thing I ate on the last night I was there.
Now, what's the difference between ice cream in Logan County and ice cream in Italy?
It's probably much more fattening in Italy, I'm sure. It's so it's the milk, I think, and the process. I don't actually really know, but I think it's richer in fat is actually the bottom line.
Well, here everything is about diet,
Yeah, it's not working so well.
I didn't ever hear. I didn't ever hear that word one time in Italy, except the only time you ever hear the word diet, which is dieta, would be when you were eating at somebody's table and you wouldn't actually take second helpings, and they would say in a really sarcastic way, what's the matter with you? Are you on a diet?
Oh, because you were offending them?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, I do well in Italy. I love seconds and thirds. Just buy bigger pants.
It's the biggest honor you give somebody is actually having second helpings, which they call bis. B-I-S is the word bis.
Uh-huh.
And I always thought if I had a restaurant, it would be called bis.
Bees.
I like that.
Well, in your spare time, maybe you can open a restaurant.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that'll keep you busy. I sure thank you for coming in. I've just been a long time wanting to hear about how you got from Miss Hieronymus got from Atlanta to New York to Italy. Fascinating. And you sure came on the right day.
Well, we've had fun with birds and
It's
cats.
it's not been dull, has it? with our predation at the station.
Predation
Yes.
at the station.
And Cynthia, it's a pleasure doing business with you.
It was lovely to be here, and I'd like to leave you with a thought.
Oh,
Be kinder to others because you don't know what they're dealing with.
very good.
Thank you for joining us, Cathy.
Thank you for having me.